Welcome to another MedTech Gurus podcast, where we meet and discuss trending and educational topics that are important to today's medical technology sales and marketing professionals. Now, it doesn't matter if you're new to the space or if you're a seasoned medical sales and marketing professional. All have come to the right place. You see, the medical technology world is ever-changing, and MedTech Gurus will help you stay up to date by interviewing experts and opinion leaders. Now, we call them gurus, and they will bring you information, techniques, and strategies that are sure to help you enhance your knowledge and help you bring value to your customers and your company. Now, I'm Sylvester Harris, and I'm pleased to introduce your host for MedTech Gurus, Mr. Tom.
Hey, what's going on out there, Gurus? This is Tom, your host of MedTech Gurus, and welcome to episode number 282. Get ready for an eye-opening discussion on the future of surgical education and collaboration. In this episode, we welcome Dr. Mark Soliman and Dr. Jeremy Heffner, two accomplished surgeons and innovators who are changing the way medical professionals connect and learn. Mark and Jeremy are the co-founders of Surgon, a groundbreaking platform that has been called the LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube of surgery. Digital hub where surgeons worldwide can share expertise, collaborate on cases, and advance their skills like never before. With over 17,000 users in the United States and a rapid global expansion, Surgon is proving real-time, peer-driven education is the future of surgical excellence. From the challenges of launching a MedTech startup to the power of AI in healthcare, this conversation is packed with insights for entrepreneurs and industry leaders alike. Tune in now to learn how Surgon is democratizing surgical education and transforming patient care across the globe. But before we get into this episode, let's thank our sponsor, Accelerant Consulting. Gurus, GPOs, RPCs, IDNs. It's all so confusing. Where do you start? Let the experts at Accelerant Consulting guide you through today's complex healthcare market. Check them out at accelerantconsulting.com. That's EXCELERANT consulting.com, and do it today. Okay, Gurus, here it comes, episode number 282. And remember, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, tell a friend. Welcome, MedTech Gurus. Today, as I mentioned in the introduction, we have two incredible guests with us. We're not just surgeons, but also innovators, transforming the way medical professionals collaborate worldwide. Dr. Soliman earned his MD at the University of Florida. He pursued his passion for colorectal surgery, a field that demands precision, problem solving, and continuous innovation. His work includes robotic-assisted procedures, and he's played a pivotal role in advancing surgical education. Dr. Soliman also recently completed his MBA. Dr. Jeremy Heffner is an acclaimed surgeon, researcher, and bioengineer whose work has been recognized nationally, including awards from the American Hernia Society, the Eastern Association for the Surgery of Trauma. Early in his career, he combined his expertise in bioengineering and surgery to establish a research lab, leading to patented advancements in hernia repair. Together, Mark and Jeremy co-founded Surgon, a game-changing mobile platform that is revolutionizing how surgeons connect, share expertise, and advance their skills globally. With over 17,000 users in the US and a recent launch in the UK and Europe, Surgon is often described as Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube all rolled into one. A digital space where doctors can ask real-time questions, collaborate on cases, and learn from one another in ways never before possible. Hey, Mark, are you ready to be our guru today?
I sure am.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Jeremy, how about you? Are you ready to be our guru today?
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. It's great to have both of you. So, Mark, let's start with you. A background in pharmacy and colorectal surgery. What drew you to the innovation side of medicine, and how has that influenced your work with Surgon?
Yeah, it's always been something inherent to me and something that I've always just enjoyed, working with my hands, solving real and tangible problems. Ever since I was a little kid and going into medical school, I found that I was just naturally drawn towards solving problems for people. And that happens to be when a part is broken, whether it's because of a tumor or a growth or some sort of infectious issue or even a perforation. I actually gravitated towards the surgical side of the world, but then Surgeon came along because it was trying to solve a very large and incredibly complex problem within the ecosystem of education and also community that we have in surgery, which we don't really have a good solution for. So I was kind of naturally drawn to those as well.
Yeah, I can see how that can happen, right? Just that need to try to help people is very helpful, and trying to spread that word is, I think, very beneficial. It's what you're doing with Surgeon. So, Jeremy, you've been recognized for your research in bioengineering advancements and hernia repair. How did your experience in both engineering and surgery shape your vision for Surgeon?
That was pretty actually straightforward. I mean, realistically, as an engineer, problem solving is the world. And when the idea of Surgeon was shown to me by our other partner, Mario, it was opportunity for limitless creativity. As I always tell people, like, entrepreneurship is inherently creative, and there's so many problems that you have to solve, smaller problems you have to solve to attain the goal that we're trying to reach. And each one of those, it's funny because if you've ever done anything that someone else hasn't done before, everybody will tell you every reason why it won't work. And most people see that as the impossibilities of solving the problem. And the reality is you have to look at it and say, these are the fun things I have to figure out how to get around or how to solve. It's just a series of problems to solve. And that's what I find so fun about it. That's why I enjoy it. And that's, I think, almost inherent to my nature. That's why I did engineering to begin with. So the two things it's almost symbiotic. It works really well.
Yeah, it takes persistence and dedication to try to get to that end goal, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the belief is that you can solve the problem. And realistically, if there's always a solution out there, and we have the team too. I think the vast majority of the population could do a lot of great things. It's the unwillingness to believe in themselves that they can accomplish it. But when you surround yourself by amazing individuals like Dr. Soliman and Dr. Leva, who are my partners, with that team, if we can't do it, then the question you have to ask yourself is who's going to do it? I mean, realistically, we have all the parts. It's just, can we put them together and make a plan that's going to work? And so far, we've been lucky to accomplish that.
I love that. Jeremy, just to stick with you for a second here, was there an aha moment that led to the creation of Surgeon? And was there a specific case or a challenge that made you realize a platform like this was necessary?
It's funny because throughout my surgical career, we've actually solved many problems. But the one that created Surgeon platform itself, I was at a conference in Florida. It's a big conference, and I don't want to name it because it's from a corporation. I don't want to bring them involved, and I was watching the people on stage. I realized I'd seen the same people give the same talks numerous times. And yet I looked around the crowd, and at that point I knew a lot of the surgeons that were there. And there was easily a half dozen that could have been giving different lectures on similar topics, but also just as qualified, just as good. But because of the way the system was set up, there's no way to discern who those people should be and who should be talking, because, we have the academics versus the community surgeons, and then who's connected to who, and the politics of all of this. And the reality is we never knew who was on stage, if they were actually technically as good as they said they were, or just good at giving talks on stage. And that question really hadn't been answered yet. And then I put a post on Facebook, which I was on at the time, and I sent it out, and it basically said what I just spoke. And in the process, I offended a lot of the people that were hosting the conference. I offended a lot of other people because I basically said, you could do better. Like, I know that we could have more variety than this. We could learn better than this. But that's when Mario reached out to me, and we had to start having conversations about how do we solve this problem? How do we create an opportunity to find the surgeons that truly are gifted and really good at what they do, because we're all hidden in these rooms. We're all isolated. We're all separated from each other. We can't see who's actually good at operating. But with social media, even in its first form then, we knew people like Mark Sullivan were out there who were producing these videos, who were showing us just how amazing they were as surgeons. And we could see that he was good. I mean, watch the video. You're like, this person knows what they're doing. Look at this dissection. It's amazing. Now we have that ability. So let's figure out who these people are and give them an opportunity, a platform to show off what they're capable of, and help teach other surgeons how to be just as qualified, just as good as they are. And so that's where it all kind of started.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Mark, bringing a new platform like this to the market in a field that's as traditional as medicine, I'm sure can be very challenging. How did you get buy-in from early adopters and industry leaders? Can you bring some insights there for us?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It's not the work of a moment. It's a slow and constant battle to get the attention of people and also to win their trust. I mean, as you can imagine, we as physicians and just humans in general, we're set in our ways. We go from our home to dinner to brush our teeth, we go to bed, and then we wake up and we have this routine that we've done. And to try and change someone's habits and to try to change someone's patterns is very challenging. And oftentimes the only way that you can do that is you have to have a compelling enough reason to make someone or to encourage someone to make that change. And so when it comes to socialization and social media and community and conversations and trust, it takes a big lift. And so to answer your question about how do we get people to buy into it, it really just starts with trust. And is there enough value in what we're doing in Surgeon, the surgery unified ecosystem? I'd be lying if I said we're done, because we're not. It's a constant battle for us to basically prove our worth to everyone, prove the quality of the education that we're trying to bring to the masses in its purest form. I mean, our tagline is we're for surgeons by surgeons, and we know what surgeons want. We're not selling you anything. We're not trying to do anything other than bring all of surgery into one unified ecosystem to help better serve our patients and better serve our surgical colleagues. And oftentimes you can think about this. The technology has an adoption spectrum. All technologies, whether it's your iPhone or a new robot or a new car or a new appliance in your kitchen, there's the early innovators. A couple percent of people are going to be the ones that are target. I don't care what it is, if it's proven or not, they're going to adopt it. And then you have the early adopters. About 13, 14% of those people are going to just adopt things just because they have access to it. And then you have like the early majority, the late majority, and of course the laggards. That this is just the adoption spectrum. It looks like a bell curve. And when we were first starting this, it was a lot of the innovators were jumping on the platform. The people that were in our space adopting robotic surgery, very early, adopting early techniques in surgery, they were the ones jumping on the platform very early. And right now, I think that we're a little bit past the early adopter phase into the early majority phase, because we have a significant majority of the US population of surgeons are already on the platform. So we have significant network effect. It's only when you have enough people with enough conversation, with enough traction, enough stickiness, and enough what we call product market fit that people will continue coming back to the platform. So Tom, to answer your question, it is a constant thing that we work for. We work to gain trust, and we work to make sure that the experience on the platform is as valuable for education and as valuable to the end user as possible.
Kind of envisioning like a giant mastermind class, right? In terms of all this education and all this experience, right? Is that the right track?
It actually is. We have what's called masterclass series on the platform all the time. We run master classes in all sorts of different specialties, and the system is built around specialties. So we have one hernia community, one colorectal surgery community, one trauma surgery community. And we bring in some of the best speakers from around the country and the planet, but also not just the ones that are the best speakers, those that are the best clinicians that may not yet have been discovered because of what Heffner was just saying. We want to make sure that we surface the best clinicians that are in the trenches and doing the work that may not have yet been discovered. And we want to bring them to the platform so that they are able to disseminate the best practices, to share what they're learning so they can really help elevate the game of everyone else around the country.
No, that's fantastic. And for both of you, and Jeremy, I'll start with you, but I'm just thinking that with 17,000 users, I'm wondering if you've got a compelling story that you've heard about the user that's really benefited from Surgeon. Do you have a quick story that you can share with that?
The best story, I'm going to punt this to Mark, because the best story is actually Mark's story. But I will say there's a very real, this does occur all the time, but let Mark tell this one.
Okay.
Yeah. I was at a conference several months ago, actually, and a person came up to me and thanked me for some of the content that I had posted on the platform. The person was referencing actually a video that posted on the inferior mesenteric artery dissection. It's a specific part of an operation where we're shaving a very critical blood vessel off of the aorta, which is a major artery of the body. I posted the video showing how I did the dissection and how actually there was a major complication in surgery where the device that I was using failed and the patient nearly exsanguinated. And so the video showed basically how I rapidly got control over the blood vessel, how myself and my operating room team was able to get control and immediately fix the issue at hand. And this all happened probably within 15 seconds. from beginning to end. So everything happened instantly. And I posted the learnings that I had in that operation on how myself and my team managed that bleeding complication in surgery. I posted it, didn't really think much of it. A couple weeks later, I go to this conference and a person came up to me and said, Dr. Soliman, listen, I want to thank you for posting that video and how you managed the inferior mesenteric artery blowout, because the very next day after watching your video and watching how you managed it, I had a patient have the exact same issue in the operating room. And you literally saved my patient's life because I would not have known how to manage that one episode of bleeding in the operating room had I not seen how you and your team dealt with it. And we hear this all the time. It's not just this one step of this catastrophic problem in the operating room. It's also, how do you avoid this complication in this step of the operation? Or how do you avoid this issue when you're talking with a patient or when you're negotiating your contract for reemployment? So we get these things all the time. And it's really one of the most heartwarming and encouraging things about the platform is that we're really democratizing surgical education, but we're also putting people in a safe space to have these conversations that we otherwise would not normally have.
Yeah. And I think that's what I want to add. I mean, on the previous platforms that surgeons would typically use, other patients, executives, other people could see what was being posted. And so posting a video like that would be fearful for most surgeons to do because it's showing that things go wrong. And because we're behind a wall, because you have to be a vetted surgeon or a medical provider to see what's going on, it allows us to have more open dialogue and be able to showcase some of these procedures. We actually have a regular discussion now, a webinar series where we have experts going over the things that went wrong in their case. They literally just pick random cases and they go over what it really looks like in surgery, because a lot of what's out there that's published by other surgeons on the major platforms, it's curated. They pick the best case. Like this is but they're not showing the dirtiness of surgery and in the day-to-day life because they're afraid to. Understandably, they're afraid to. Whereas on our platform, you could have the very real conversations that need to occur to advance surgical education.
Yeah, that's phenomenal because I'm thinking, personally, I've had the benefit and privilege of being at roughly 500 robotic surgeries in my career, and it's one of those things, everyone is different, right? I mean, they've got different anatomy, different structures, different things going on, right? And that's the creativity, but it's really awesome. I think that's a great story in the sense of things happen, right? And to have somebody that had that experience of having to solve that problem within 15 seconds, Mark, like you did, that's got to be really gratifying, I would think.
Yeah, it really is. And truly, I think highlights that the mission and vision of Surgeon is actually the right one, that we're doing what we're trying to do to democratize surgical education, just really bring everyone to the table to contribute to the body and the corpus of surgical knowledge.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, Mark, you were kind of talking about some of the challenges of bringing technology to the market. What were some of those bigger challenges in ensuring Surgeon, met the needs of surgeons without being just another social media app? Can you expand on that a little bit for us?
We have lots of social media apps out there and lots of methods by which people can communicate. And so when we actually began the platform, we did it wrong, where we were thinking to ourselves what we think the market needs. We went back actually and did a little bit more of an introspective search as to what were the problems that existed with public social media, problems with user verification, problems with the inability to easily discover posts and to easily have good conversations. We had to solve for problems that we realized in the public social media world, that there was this issue of bullying and an issue of peacocking. We didn't truly know the identity of surgeons. We didn't have the ability to say that there's only one place for a relevant conversation to happen, say in hernia surgery or say in thoracic surgery. So when we first began this whole idea of Surgeon, actually, we said, let's just build an app that has the ability to upload videos and you can tag surgical products to it. But when we went back and began to really think through this, we put the user at the center of it. To make sure that it's not just another social media app, we want to make sure that we were solving real and tangible problems that the surgeon or the person that has to deal with a surgical patient interacts with. And to each of those problems, we created basically these thematic solutions. So we knew that we had to solve the verification issue by prioritizing the identity of the user. We knew that we had to solve for the problem with the discoverability of posts by making sure that there was only one home for posts to go and exist in the app, and that there's a methodology by which users can discover those posts by searching, sorting, and tagging the posts that are in the platform, and so on and so forth. And so to answer your question, Tom, the biggest thing that we learn is that to make sure that we balance the clinical needs of the technology with the needs of the surgeons is we listen to our users. And we are users. We're the surgeons themselves, so we know what we want, but we always pull in our surgical colleagues to ask them, what problem do you need solving? And I'll give you one of the great examples that we just released is an ambient AI transcription platform called Surgeon Scribe. And basically what that is surgeons had the real and tangible problem in their clinics of running from room to room and, taking notes and, sometimes not really being fully present with their patients because they're so busy typing in their EMR, scribbling down on a sheet of paper that they couldn't really fully detach from the administrative and kind of technical work of writing the notes to just be present with the human being that was in front of them. Surgeon Scribe is the solution to that, in which a surgeon can just walk in the room, tap a button, and have a HIPAA-compliant AI transcription platform record the conversation, and it extracts the relevant surgical data points and then puts it into a SOAP note or H&P format. It really allows the surgeon to arrive back and to become a provider of human care. So that's just one of the many, many examples of us listening to our users and coming back with a true technological solution to those issues.
Yes, and to build on that, Jeremy, over to you for just a second. I mean, that was really a really great answer from Mark, right? I mean, it always kind of comes back to immersion and listening. It's funny how that works in the world of entrepreneurship. But, many startups struggle with adoption, so I'm just kind of curious, specifically what strategies did your team use to scale from, just an idea like this to a platform with many thousands of users? Can you provide us some insights for that?
Yeah, I mean, Surgeon's we have to advance. It's difficult because we're advancing in basically three directions at any time. We have three real constituencies. We have the surgeons themselves who are obviously fundamental to the platform. They are what makes the platform what it is. That's us having those conversations, the debates, discussions, really learning from each other. But then there's the society side. There's a lot of the great information that comes out of societies, the education that comes out of the societies, and how do we incorporate the societies and other groups of surgeons into the ecosystem that is Surgeon? Because what we've been able to produce with Surgeon is an environment where a lot of these groups who have come together also share interest in learning and education, want to get their information out, and we can plug them into our system where it allows them to share that information with the other surgeons in the community. But also we have marketing, we have PR, we can really help them develop beyond where they're already at because we've been able to create this network effect with our larger resources that we've developed. And then the third constituency is industry. I mean, as I always say, we as surgeons are actually just the tip of the spear. And in many cases, industry has gotten pushed aside and told that, they're the bastard stepchild because we can't talk to them, we can't be friends with them. But the reality is I can't suture without sutures created by a company. I can't use a robot that wasn't created by 1,000 engineers probably over the course of the last, 20 years. All those things have to be produced by somebody, built by somebody, thought through by somebody. And that interaction between surgeons and the engineers and these companies has to occur. And so how do we create a world and environment where we can really work together and develop technology, new products that solve problems, that real world problems that we're having? That we can't do that unless you have those conversations. And we are trying to create that environment. That's part anything that's tangential to what surgeons are doing. We're trying to find a way to create an interaction, a true interface that works. And sometimes it goes beyond the algorithm itself. I mean, we actually have one thing Surgeon has done is we've created real world experiences too, because you have to be there. You have to have conversations that exist outside what the algorithm do. And all of that together, if you start building in all those directions, the people will show up. And that's what we found. It's really created true collaboration.
Yeah, I love that because it's really an environment where you can immerse and kick around those ideas. And I'm sure just working with some of the individuals on that platform, that's really, you start bouncing those ideas, and I'm sure you're going to see many more adaptions and many other product ideas come from that, right?
Yeah, it's even better that, this sounds wrong, but to become a surgeon, there's not a dumb surgeon. Like I've had people, they're like, oh, that woman, that guy's stupid. It's like, yeah, that's not true. Like say they're surgeons, because to get to here, the testing requirements, the workload that it takes, I mean, it's just the filtering process before you become a surgeon pretty much separates out a group and so they're very highly talented people across the board. They're highly talented. And when you bring them all into one place and let them just start interacting, it's amazing what comes of it, because you have musicians, you have artists, you have other entrepreneurs, they're all, like you said, all well-educated, all understand a variety of different topics. I mean, they don't, as Mark was in pharmacy before this, I was engineering before this. And so you bring them together and you put them in a space like this, and then you allow them to interact with engineers, device companies, other kinds of tech, finance people, lawyers. I mean, we got all these different interactions going on, and it really does foment just amazing conversations and a lot of great ideas. The problem is every time we hand it to somebody for the first time, like, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And you're sitting there and it's like, yeah, we've thought, and then you'll get to something you're like, I didn't think of that. And it's always fun to have those conversations. And so it's really the hardest part. Mark brings this up all the time. The hardest part's there's an infinite number of directions to take it, and it's limiting it down to the ones that are most viable and most important at that moment.
Yeah. So, and then Mark, you touched a little bit on this with, kind of vetting some of the users and, who's on the platform, but I'm kind of wondering from, a privacy and security and how critical that is for healthcare. How does Surgeon maintain compliance with regulations while allowing for some of this open collaboration? It seems like kind of a tightrope there at times. What do you do to ensure that?
Yeah, it's definitely a very fine line. First and foremost, the platform, we do not allow patient health information or PHI on the platform. Mm-hmm. And so there are common sense things that the platform invokes where you don't post PHI, you don't post anything that's HIPAA sensitive on the platform. Even though the platform is built to be HIPAA compliant, we don't claim to be HIPAA compliant. So the users know just never to post PHI on the platform. So that's the first thing. So we are not an EHR. We are not an actual healthcare application that you would use like to have clinical conversations with your care team in the hospital. Truly, we're in that case, we're really just a social media platform. But we obsess over the privacy and security and the identity of the user on the platform because we want to make sure that we encourage and are a platform for open discussion on the platform. That's where the value comes. And so to that end, every single user on the platform is verified with two things. Their identity is verified and their profession is identified. So we said there's proof of identity and proof of profession. And the proof of profession, say in the US, is your NPI number. We know if you have an NPI number, we know exactly where you go, where you live, what you practice, what your taxonomy is. We know a lot of things about you with your NPI number, but we don't necessarily know if that's you. So we therefore have a secondary form of identification, which is, and you just take a picture of your hospital badge or your driver's license, just so that we know that truly the NPI number matches with the identity of the user. So proof of identity and proof of profession. Same thing for our international colleagues. Yeah, we have users all over the planet in all sorts of different countries. And so they'll send us their certificates in different languages and whatever else. And we actually have AI tools built to help us identify what the verbiage on the certificate is and what the verbiage on their ID is to make sure it all matches. And so we take this incredibly serious to make sure that we maintain the purity of the security and the privacy of the platform.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it sounds like you're doing everything possible to ensure that, which is just fantastic. And Jeremy, over to you. I mean, we touched a little bit about how your team combined the social networking with professional education in a very unique way here. We also touched a little bit on AI, but how do you see AI and machine learning enhancing the platform in the future? Can you provide any insights for us there?
Yeah, well, I was lucky literally yesterday. Like we downloaded the newest update yesterday, and we've just incorporated AI. Previously, as he already talked about, we added AI Scribe. So the Scribe feature is phenomenal because it allows us to start putting tools into the hands of surgeons that a lot of times they didn't know existed. And it was brought to our attention by another surgeon. And so a surgeon and his brother-in-law have been trying to solve this transcription problem. And we were at a conference, the three of us, Mark, Mario, and myself. And this young surgeon comes over, he's like, I got this thing. He starts talking to Mario. He shows him this product, this AI product. And Mario's just mind blown. And so he brings it to us and he sits down, they do a little skit. And we just talked before this, like during the skit, somebody interrupts us, completely separate conversation. Then there's a crash of a bunch of plates. There's a bunch of things happening in the background where they're doing the skit. And yet he hits the button. All he does is hit the button, starts the skit, hits the button again, boom, done. Everything was done. And at that point, I realized just how powerful AI was. And even though, I'm in the tech field, even though I'm using it for this and that, I hadn't seen it used in a professional setting such as this, being, reproducing a professional setting. And you realize, wow. And that was the thing. Next thing there's 12 people watch us do it. Then there's 20 people watch us do it. And this keeps repeating. I was like, wow, this is how powerful it is. And most surgeons, because we're in our bubbles, we're not going to go find this. And the reason is we have to find something. Yeah, if I wanted to, I had to know that this exists. Then once I know it exists, I have to believe that it's amazing, because I have to go, wow, it's really impressive. Then I have to go, is it HIPAA compliant? Then I got to find one, make sure it's HIPAA compliant, that I can trust the company that's using it. And I don't get in trouble with Medicare services. I don't have some oversight groups that I shouldn't. So most surgeons, it's a much longer path from this is a neat AI idea to I'm going to implement this into my system. They're just not going to go down that path, because there's too many risks in our world. If you make a wrong step, that you're going to be causing some sort of medical legal problem. And so what we were able to do is say, look, we vetted this team. We know who they are. They're surgeons and they know what they're doing. It's all HIPAA compliant. We're able to do that for the rest of the surgeons and then hand them this product that we know follows the rules, is safe, is compliant. It does all the things that we really claim it does. And so, and the other thing about the app it allows us to do is we get direct feedback. The surgeons can talk to us immediately and say, hey, we're having a problem with this, or this isn't working. We're not some giant corporation. Our developers can sit there right then and start fixing whatever problems they're having. So that immediate feedback really helps develop it. So the iterative process is much quicker. That's one area. But then yesterday we just incorporated right into the AI feeds. So now our feed and the way we generate data on the app itself is actually AI driven. So we're starting to incorporate that directly into it. And where surgery is going, we know in every direction AI is being implemented in surgery, from throughput through the hospital systems and operating room systems, efficiencies. We have companies we work with that's their specialty, all the way to, I mean, just about a month ago, there's the first surgical robot that taught itself how to suture. So we're looking at where this goes over the next 10 years. I had the luxury, we do an interview series called The Cutting Edge, where we go to these conferences and we actually interview the key opinion leaders at the conferences, because it's our belief that a lot of information just kind of dies after the conference ends. And so this allows us to create basically a new show, live recorded new show from these conferences to take these really important pieces of information and then disseminate them across the entire surgical field and other medical professionals over our platform. And one of the interviews I got to do was at the next big thing, Sage's next big thing out of Houston last month, was with one of the experts in AI and surgery worldwide. And he has his own conference in Europe that he does on AI and surgery. Just to hear where the advances are, I think that some might be scared by it, but I mean, he really, the next 3 to 5 years, it is going to transform surgery. We're seeing that month to month on our platform. We're seeing it. And in the real world of surgery, we're seeing it. So it is very much becoming a part of our lives.
Yeah, I would think from like even a real world evidence generation and, medical affairs, the data and interaction must be incredible.
Yeah, I think that if you look at it from a large scale standpoint, right now, we are only able to account for a small number of variables in our studies and anything that we do. We can only account for a small number of variables. So the ability to do extensive multivariate analysis, and really we may be missing some sort of effect that random, some comorbidity is having that we don't realize it's having. There's very much an opportunity in medicine that we're going to make a lot of massive discoveries. On the pharmaceutical side, obviously, we can produce new types of drugs. But on the surgical side, being able to optimize, because you can then optimize efficiencies, not just in the operating room setting, and making sure that you have the devices, the right rooms, the right staffing to get a number of patients through and make sure that their experience is better, but also on the robots themselves. I mean, the ability to limit, I'll give you an example. We see it on the new DV5, the newest robotic instrument that we use in the United States. Now they got a force feedback where it kind of stops you from doing some things or hitting something. Before they didn't have that. We didn't think you really needed it, but it's kind of the first step for self-driving for cars, where first it said lane, you have that lane activation thing where you couldn't leave the lane. That's kind of the first step of DV5. It's like, no, you can't accidentally hit something you didn't mean to. And so that's more of it. Once again, it's the intelligence of the system getting added in over time. It's just going to continue to improve.
That's phenomenal. And Mark, I want to switch over to a little bit of the business side here for a second. MedTech startups often struggle with monetization. And I'm curious in terms of what's the business model for Surgeon and how do you plan to sustain growth and grow the platform?
Yeah. I think it's important first to realize what Surgeon is. The platform Surgeon is a surgical education and networking platform. It's much like a surgical conference in which you have presentations and didactics happening up at the podium, and then in the hallway you have kind of social conversation between surgeons as they're drinking coffee. And then next door, you have the exhibit halls in which vendors will kind of display products and whatever else. you can't have a surgical conference without having some sort of industry sponsorship. And so we have taken a similar model in that we monetize the platform by, we run lots of educational webinars on the platform. And those educational webinars never, ever advertise a specific product, but they are, as we say, product adjacent. And so we get sponsorship to webinars speaking about a disease process. Let's say, for example, we're going to do something, a masterclass on ventral hernia repair. For that ventral hernia repair masterclass, we may have a mesh company be the sponsor for it. We'll never mention the mesh and we'll never talk about the product that mesh itself is. Now, if it organically comes out, that's fine. But what we don't do is we don't do product placement. So that's one way in which we monetize our platform, is to sell sponsorships to the educational webinars that are purely educational and not commercial. That's the first point. Second thing, the conferences. I mean, we actually have a conferences platform within the system that allows you to host full-fledged surgical conferences in the app, where you go to a SAGES or you go to you name it, a conference, and you download the conference app for the day, and then you delete it, 2-3 days after you finish that conference. Well, we fixed that problem. So now you go to a conference and immediately the conference pops up in your app in Surgeon, and you're able to go seamlessly from a conversation about, the inferior mesenteric artery blowout to a direct message to that surgeon. And then also next thing you know, you're in the conference, seeing the agenda, talking to the speakers, listening to the conversation that's happening, answering polling questions. So we monetize conferences. We also sell community. So in the platform, we have the ability for surgical societies and industry to subscribe to private communities on the platform where they can have basically a triple net lease. They can do anything they want inside of their private community. They can spin up as many private groups within their communities they'd like, hosting white papers, hosting webinars, hosting conferences, having as many of their users in the platform as possible. We found true reasons, meaningful reasons to monetize the platform, typically centered again around the true problems that need to be solved for. But one thing that we do not monetize our surgeons. We do not sell to our surgeons, with the exception of Surgeon Scribe, in which it does require a lot of server maintenance. And so that does require a subscription. And so that would be the fourth vertical of monetization that we have with Surgeon Scribe.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you. And, Jeremy, kind of building on this, you're also expanding into the UK and Europe, which brings just a ton of different regulatory and cultural challenges. We touched a little bit on some of that. We've got a lot of gurus out there, or entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. So what did you learn, and what were some of the biggest hurdles going into that global expansion, and how did you start to navigate that? Can you provide our gurus some insight out there?
There's certain, I find it humorous because initially we were going to go to the EU last just because they're the most painful to deal with. We were pulled into it because there's a conference that we were expected to be hosting in June or July. But Society of Robotic Surgery is hosting a conference in France. We have to host it. So we had to kind of expedite the European Union moving forward. Not because we didn't want to talk. Obviously there's amazing surgeons in the EU and a lot of great academic resources, and their societies are phenomenal, but it's just the regulatory bodies, because we fall in an interesting intersection of tech, so social media and all the rules that go with social media, but also medical compliance from a HIPAA compliance standpoint. So we have to maintain both of those. Not that we have to be HIPAA compliant per se, but we got to make sure that we're not falling outside of whatever the boundaries are that they set in both of those fields or those realms. So for me, I'm very much a 30,000 foot view, have fun, big picture, let's break some things, build some new stuff kind of guy. And when you sit down and we have our meetings, our tech team, we have a full tech development team. They're out of Pune, India, and they do a phenomenal job. And they're our head of development. She graduated from IIT and Indian Institute of Technology. Our second command also went to IIT. These are very impressive people, but we have to meet with them at 5 a.m. because of the time difference. So Mark seems to love 5 a.m. I'm not the biggest fan. So at 5 a.m. I'm sitting there having these conversations about SOC 2 compliances in Europe. And I'm just, oh my gosh, it was the opposite of what I enjoy. But the reality is you have to play it there so you can't stumble over. One, you got to find the people. You got to find the people that know what this looks like and can understand how the different landscapes are different and what you have to do to move forward. And you have to take them seriously, because sometimes I just want to overstep the small bumps in the road. And then you actually have to do the paperwork to pay attention to details. And it's just funny because you think as a surgeon, yeah, but But the truth is, those are the things that are going to stumble. You could think of all the big pictures you want, but if you're not willing to sit down and check the boxes off that need to be checked off, you're just going to find yourself wishing and dreaming and never getting there. I need people like Mark. I watch Mark. I've told the story probably dozens of times, but we were on a phone call and Mark was arguing with the graphics designer about how many pixels in width something was because he got his magnifying glass out. And that's why I need Mark, because in the group, he is by far the most detail oriented.
So what makes a partnership work, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Mark, kind of building on that, with our gurus out there, what advice would you give them when they're trying to commercialize an innovative product in a highly regulated field like this? Do you have any pearls of wisdom for our gurus out there?
Yeah. Solve a real problem. I think the most important thing is make sure that the problem you're solving has a large enough need, and that there's a large enough needs assessment, gap analysis, and a passion project can only take you so far. If there's a big enough problem to be solved, that product market fit is a real thing. Then you absolutely need to make sure that you're focusing on the data and focusing on the needs assessment, and not something that just becomes a passion project, something that you just tend to that you like. It has to be something that truly everyone needs. So that would be the biggest piece of advice, because product market fit, if you don't have it, doesn't matter what you got going on, not the best idea, the best execution of an idea will never compensate for a bad product market fit.
Yeah, I love that. In my career, and I've been in this industry for over 40 years, I call those elegant solutions to non-problems, right? Yeah, so definitely. And, I think one of the things that your team has done is really immersed. You use the term listening and getting that feedback, which is essential. And sometimes people tell you your baby's ugly and you got to deal with that, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I'll tell you, for the founders out there, nobody on the planet is going to know your product better than you. Actually, we struggle with this even until today, is trying to articulate to our user base what all the things that we have in the platform. Heff mentioned it early in this discussion. Is like, sometimes people say, hey, did you think of this yet? Like, yeah, it's right there. Hey, did you think of this feature? Yeah, it's right there as well. So the founders out there, no one's going to know your product better than you, and no one's going to be able to understand the totality of the vision that you have for your company or for your product better than you. So it's incumbent on you as a founder to be able to clearly and repeatedly articulate what it is that you're solving, the problems that you've solved for already, where you need to go, most importantly, why this is important to the people that are using your product. And also, exactly as you said, Tom, your baby can be ugly, and you need to be able to listen to feedback. And that's very, very difficult, especially, we all love building solutions. We love building things. We love building products. But the problem is sometimes that solution is just not the right thing, and it may need to be tweaked slightly. We have to be able to listen to our users. We have to stop, pump the brakes, take time to listen to the user, and make sure that you're actually getting his stakeholder input before you just charge ahead. Because the last thing you want to do is build something that no one wants and not have product market fit.
Yeah. Very, very good words of advice. And Jeremy, in this industry, funding is always a challenge in MedTech. So I'm just kind of curious, did your team bootstrap this launch, or did you seek some investment or venture capital? And, what were your lessons learned from this process that maybe our viewers out there should know?
Yeah, it was interesting. We built able to bootstrap. I always go back to when we first decided to build it, we thought it was going to take us about 6 weeks to friends and family just get some money together. And so I contacted a bunch of my friends, and it took 2 hours to get the initial seed money we need. People that knew work that we had done before, understood that we were capable of accomplishing, and they saw the vision. So they were, at that point, you're investing in a vision and in the people, not so much a product. And so early on, it was definitely, the difficulty was trying to get people to see the vision, because that's what you're selling. It's like, it's going to look like this one day, and it's going to have this thing. But what I have found is it does get easier when you start to have a product and you start to be able to show them what it's capable of and the numbers and all that. But even then, I think in the world of apps or software, it's somewhat difficult because you have to get them to see what the inner workings are doing. All you're seeing is the interface, and you're not realizing what that interface is accomplishing. And so it's figuring out a way to walk them through the very real human part that's going on, that's being affected by what's just really on screen and just numbers. And that can be difficult sometimes. And now it's like, so it gets easier as it starts to influence the real world more. people see it, people and know what it is roughly. That's gotten easier. But at the same time, we're still working on that problem. I mean, every day it's like we're trying to make sure we develop the right income streams, make sure that because you only have so much money to figure out where that money's going to come, where you're going to get the best for your buck and where that next income stream is going to come from. And we're hoping to keep it, as we're opposed to venture capital, we're hoping to just keep it down in the venture capital where possible and allow us as much freedom to maneuver because realistically, we've been able to accomplish this. I'll give you a story. Our CFO specializes in software. He's brought in to develop small software companies from a financial standpoint, from a human resources standpoint. And then the private equity groups he typically works for, when like a certain size, they sell off, he gets his piece, moves on. He's done it multiple times. And when we introduced him what we were doing, he was flabbergasted that we ever got this far. It's like nobody in software gets this far. Like this doesn't happen. Like you were saying, this doesn't happen. Like because of your connections, because of who you guys are, somehow you figured this out. Because I just want to be a part of it because I've never seen anybody pull this off. So I think that we're really in some ways trailblazing here. And we'll, as I said, it's just the next problem we'll have to solve. Money is always going to be an issue since we're growing, and we'll just continue to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. So first of all, gentlemen, I'd like to acknowledge both of you for the time and insights that you've brought to us today. And as a way of wrapping up, I'm wondering if it sounds like this is a really exciting time at Surgeon. So Mark, maybe I'll start with you. What does the future hold and where you see things going from here?
I think the future for Surgeon and Surgery Unified as a parent company is we want to be the definitive hub for all surgical collaboration and exchange of ideas and goods. And so where I see this going is that we effectively become almost like the Amazon, just the central hub for where all conversations, all surgical societies, all industry blend everything together, where you visit your surgical society's white papers, where you look to learn about products, where you look to learn about surgical techniques, where you go to pay your surgical society dues, where you have conversations with getting in touch with this person for a letter of recommendation and so on, or even where you go look for a job. And we have the inner workings of all these pieces happening at the moment. And where I see ourselves in several years, and that North Star is to truly do what our company name is, which is Surgery Unified. Our goal is to unify surgery under one umbrella. And it's not for us, it's for the surgical community to make sure that we're no longer dispersed and distributed like a diaspora all over. We're actually unified into one cohesive ecosystem. So that would be the ultimate goal with this.
And Jeremy, how about you? What does the future hold from your perspective?
I agree with Mark. One reason we've been so successful is Mark and I talk at least once a day, and we share what the North Star is. I think that to see it in a more human tone, imagine that Mark Soliman or Jeremy Heffner or somebody, literally in the rural areas of the Dakotas comes up with a new technique that's phenomenal and says, look, I just figured this out, and we can disseminate that worldwide in minutes or hours, whereas now that's an impossibility. And that new paper that comes out, we can say, look, this is really important, and we think that you should probably know this, and we can put it out there, and all of a sudden there's somebody in Singapore talking about, hey, this is a great idea. And there's great ideas coming out of the Asian Pacific market. There's great ideas coming out of South America. There's great ideas coming out of Europe. We don't even touch on those. We assume, I think the population probably assumes that there's communication between the European, surgical societies and the Asian surgical societies, but it's only occasional that there's some crossover from a person that goes there, that comes here, they take an idea, but then you got the politics of it, you got everything else. So the reality is there is education and learning occurring worldwide. There's great ideas that come from any place in the world, and we want to be able to figure out where those ideas are, get a hold of them, and then share them as quickly and as effectively as possible so that in the end result, we have better patient care. It's everywhere. And when I talked to, first I was talking to my colleagues in Europe, and we brought our European team on, as you brought out, like, how do we get this into areas, education areas of, for them, it was the Eastern Europeans, which don't have a lot of access to it, or then even into the African nations and some of the more impoverished nations. Like, how do we get this to them faster? They don't have access to this kind of information. So how can we get this educational material to as many people that don't have any access to it or have very little access to any educational material as quickly as possible? These are things that we are our goals, because fundamentally surgical education is about patient care. Surgical education is about making sure that more lives are saved. There is less bleeding, less death from bleeding. There's less infections, that the world is just a little bit better for the patients that enter the hospital systems all around the world. That's really what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I love that. And once again, gentlemen, thank you so much. And if if somebody wants to learn more about Surgeon or connect with you, Mark, I'll toss it over to you. Is there a website? Are you on LinkedIn? How do we learn more about Surgeon?
Yeah, we're on all the socials. They can learn more about Surgeon and Surgery Unified, the parent company, by going to surgeryunified.com. And through there, you can link to everything, link to Surgeon, the app itself, which is surgeonapp.com, or to all of our socials and where we are. You can find Heffner, myself, or Mario on LinkedIn, on X, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're pretty much everywhere. But yeah, surgeryunified.com will be the best place.
Fantastic. Jeremy, any final thoughts from you?
No, I just appreciate your time. And I think that, like anything else, it's just getting more people to hear what we're doing, understand the background, what we're accomplishing. We just put a video out, which I think was really good, kind of walking through the background of Surgeon. Mark and I having a long conversation on what we call the Cutting Edge, which is our new show. They can look for that on YouTube, but it's a really good conversation between the two of us for about 40 minutes, really getting the background, the current position we're in, and then where we're going. And we're always looking for people to talk to and collaborate with, because the one thing about our field is it interacts and touches on so many different other fields in people's lives. If you think there's a potential way that we can work with you, reach out to us. We're more than happy to listen.
No, that's fantastic. So once again, Jeremy and Mark, I appreciate your time and insights in being our viewers today.
Well, thank you so much, Bill.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to MedTech Gurus. I am Sylvester Harris, your MC. If you want to learn more about Term and his consulting services, you can go to www.pctmedical.com or email Term at term@pctmedical.com. Now, I can be reached at Sylvester Harris, that's SylvesterHarris 5048@gmail.com, and I'd be pleased to discuss any voiceover work that you may want for your company or broadcast. Hey, thanks so much for listening, and catch us on the next episode of MedTech Gurus.